Good morning. Good morning. Anybody excited to be at church today? Fantastic. Ashley, if you can hear my voice, I need my other tablet because this one is spazzed out, so I have no notes, so we're just going to go with it. But good morning. Look at that. You see that? Look at that. Walk through the door. She's going to take care of it for me. Give that girl a round of applause. Yes, thank you. Ashley, in case you don't know, does operation stuff here. So all the stuff that it goes well, it's all because of her and her team. All the stuff that goes bad is usually because of me. So here we go. I'm excited. We started last week. We started the message series called what? Does anybody know? Get your life back. Fantastic. You can, that's small, but that's good. I got good eyes. I'm under the age of 40. Not for long, but I am. Okay. But I know what you're thinking. As soon as I came up here today, I know exactly what you're thinking. My pastor looks good with long hair or short hair. I knew it. I see. I can read your mind. I lost the bet. No, not really. I'm thinking about just completely shaving it because I used to have party all over. Now I got business here and party in the middle. But we'll just go with it. It's feeling pretty good. So if I start rubbing it during the thing, it comes into a fro hawk. So we'll have some fun with it. But we're in this message series called Get Your Life Back. And I think it's important to get our life back. There are things that we currently, and you currently, are living under that you were meant to live over. And it's important that we get our life back. Man, we live in the most anxious, depressed time in the world. And in the history of the world, more people are anxious and depressed and overwhelmed and fearful now than ever before. And I don't think for one moment that God said, hey, I just want you to live a life overwhelmed and live a life lonely and live a life depressed and live a life gripped and riddled with anxiousness and fear. That was not God's will or purpose for any one of us. And so we want to get our life back. We want to live life being the loaded vessel that we are. Last week we talked about how Charles Spurgeon said that we are loaded vessels because the pirates always go after loaded vessels. No pirate goes after a vessel that doesn't have worth and value on board. And all of us have worth and value on board. It is onboarded into you by the Spirit of God. You have worth, you have power, you have purpose, you matter, you are a loaded vessel. You are loaded with these things. And the Spirit of God wants you to live life in the way He made you to live. But there is a pirate at hand, and there is one that's trying to rob you, steal from you, and kill your purpose. But today, we want our life back. So last week, we talked about to get your life back, you got to check the what? Anybody remember? Check the voice. And we talked about identifying the negative voices that we listen to and kicking them out and bringing in positive voices, the voices of truth, the voices of reason, the voice of grace, the voice of forgiveness. So that was last week, and today I'm just going to tell you, I'm feeling this one, all right? It was something in the first service. I was screaming, I was yelling, I was dancing. As Jonathan said, I was hitting my chest. I have no idea why, but I was feeling this message, all right? So you may hear this message today, and you may be like, that's up, right? And that's okay, because I'm feeling it, right? It means something to me. Now, I don't know about you, but sometimes I get these notifications on my phone that I didn't plan to get. Now, I had this little issue happen to me a few years back with my smartphone. I was, just hanging out and nothing really going on. And all of a sudden, I got this notification. My phone dinged, and I looked, and it was a notification somehow, some way, that from the Kardashians that I needed to watch their show. So I got this notification from Keeping Up with the Kardashians. And it was that Kim Kardashian, wanted to say this on her show, and she thought people should watch it. I'm like, I have no idea. Why did I get a notification about Keeping Up with the Kardashians? Like, I'm not a Kardashian. I don't watch the Kardashian show. I don't even know really who the Kardashians are. I don't know why they're famous, nor does anybody else, right? And so I got this notification about Keeping Up with the Kardashians. I thought, well, maybe that's just some random thing. Like, maybe that's just not, I don't know, maybe they sent it to the wrong number. Maybe, something happened. Okay, fine. Whatever. Well, a couple weeks go by, I get another one. I get a notification that now Kanye, and Kanye, and he's going to be on the show and all this stuff. I'm thinking, man, I don't care about this. I don't care about Keeping Up with the Kardashians. So then I get another one and another one and another one. I'm like, I'm going into the settings of my phone. I'm going to figure out, why did the Kardashians want me? Right? I'm like, I am not Kardashian at all. And then I got a new phone. Not just for that reason. Somebody like, man, it's really about him. But I got a new phone. I thought, okay, I beat this thing. Kardashians ain't never going to message me again. Well, until about 2 weeks ago, I was spending some time with the Lord, and typically I will have my phone and the volume on my phone off during that time. Well, it just so happens that day I forgot to turn the volume on my phone off. And I'm in there meeting with the Lord, and I'm feeling really good about, the Lord speaking to me, and my phone dinged. Well, I kind of operate on this thing that sometimes the interruption is the assignment, where sometimes I thought, well, maybe there's a reason that I didn't turn my volume off because somebody really needed me. And maybe something, so I stopped being, in that moment with the Lord to pick up my phone thinking I was going to be helping somebody. And it was the Kardashians. Yeah, it was the Kardashians. They want to let me know they got a new show coming out. And you know what? I don't care about the Kardashians. I can't keep up with the Kardashians. I got kids myself popping out of everywhere. I got 4 kids under 7 and under. I can't even keep up with the Murphys, much less the Kardashians too. So I get these messages about keeping up with the Kardashians that I have no idea where they came from. I have no idea how they got attached to me. And that is a joke, but at the same time, this is the way many of us live. We live being bombarded by things that we don't even know how they attach themselves to our life. Sometimes we live and we let ourselves into something. Other times, somehow, some way, things attach themselves to us and we live under the weight of it. And I want to tell you, it's time to get your life back. Whether you led yourself into that thing or somehow someone else contributed to it. It is time to get your life back. You weren't meant to live miserable and overwhelmed and depressed and anxious. The thing that you're living under, you were probably meant to live over. It is time we get our life back. It's time that we tell the devil, the things that you've attached to me are not for me, and I'm letting go of those. I'm ripping those off, and I'm becoming who I was made to be. Yeah. I'm telling you, I'm feeling this one, and I'm going to yell, and I'm going to scream, I'm going to jump, I'm going to prance, I'm going to do it all today. It is time to get your life back. And I said this at the end of the first service, but I mean it. There's a problem when the preacher on the stage wants you to get your life back more than you want to get it back. There's a problem when the guy preaching wants you to live more free than you want to live. It's time you get your life back. You are a loaded vessel, and you have worth, and you have purpose, and you have dignity, and God made you with value. And you need to take your eyes off of the brokenness and look to the fact that it's time to get your life back. It's time to get your life back. So this passage of Scripture that we dealt with last week and this week and probably next week, and if I like it next week, the next 6 weeks, is 2 Chronicles chapter 29, verses 3 through 17. Yes, I'm going to read all of these verses. Some of you, that's more than you read in the last year, but I'm catching you up on your Bible reading time. 2 Chronicles chapter 29. Before we get to chapter 29, remember, there's a king right before this in chapter 28. His name is Ahaz. And Ahaz is not a nice guy, right? I said another word. He is not a good dude. He's not the guy that you want to bring home to mom and like, hey, I met a guy. No, that's not him. All right? This is the dude that's so evil and wicked that in idol worship, he sacrificed some of his own children. So you can kind of see his wickedness there. He's a guy that's got some issues. He was the king. He was removed. He passed, and he was removed from his authority. And then he has another son named Hezekiah, which comes to the throne. Now, Hezekiah is very different than Ahaz because Hezekiah says he was righteous in the sight of the Lord. So I just want to go ahead and say this. I said it last week, is don't give me the excuse that you have to be what you grew up around. Because you can prove it again and again and again in the Word of God. That you can let go of addiction, you can let go of bondage, that you are what you choose to be. And just because you grew up around it, or that's because what your family does, doesn't mean that's who you have to be or become. Because Ahaz and Hezekiah are very, very different. And now we're going to pick up here. It says the very first month of the first year of his reign, Hezekiah reopened the doors of the temple of the Lord and repaired them. He summoned the priests and the Levites to meet him at the courtyard east of the temple. He said to them, listen to me, you Levites, purify yourself and purify the temple of the Lord, the God of your ancestors. Remove all the defiled things from the sanctuary. Our ancestors were unfaithful and did what was evil in the sight of the Lord our God. They abandoned the Lord and his dwelling place. They turned their backs on him. Verse 7, they also shut the doors of the temple, of the temple's entry room, and they snuffed out the lamps, and they stopped burning incense and presenting burnt offerings to the sanctuary, or at the sanctuary of the God of Israel. Remember last week, we mentioned that any time in Scripture relating to the temple that you see the lamps mentioned, the lamps are symbolic of the reading of the Word of God. They're symbolic of the instruction and the wisdom that comes from the Scriptures. And anytime you hear about incense, burning incense in the temple, it is symbolic of prayer and praise, interacting with the very presence of God. And so what he's saying here is like, hey, listen, we've been neglecting the wisdom that comes from the Word of God and interacting with the presence of God. So we see here, this is why in verse 8, the Lord's anger has fallen upon Judah and Jerusalem. He has made them an object of dread, horror, and ridicule, as you can see with your own eyes. Because of this, our fathers have been killed in battle, and our sons and daughters and wives have been captured. But now I will make a covenant with the Lord, the God of Israel, so that his fierce anger will turn away from us. My sons, do not neglect your duties any longer. That was a key verse for us last week. And again this week, my sons, do not neglect your duties any longer. The Lord has chosen you to stand in his presence, to minister to him, and to lead the people in worship and present offerings to him. Verse 12, then the Levites got right to work, or then these Levites got right to work. And because I'm from Princeton and I'm not highly educated, I will leave these names out right now because they will make me sound like a fool because I have no idea how to pronounce them. Forgive me, but we're going to jump to verse 15. It says, these men called together their fellow Levites, and they all purified themselves. They began to cleanse the temple of the Lord just as the king had commanded. They were careful to follow all the Lord's instructions in their work. 16, the priests went into the sanctuary of the temple of the Lord to cleanse it. And they took out of the temple courtyard all the defiled things, and then from there the Levites carted it to the Kidron Valley. They began the work in early spring on the first day of the new year, and in 8 days they had reached the entry room of the temple. Then they purified the temple of the Lord itself, which took another 8 days, so the entire task was completed in 16 days. Now, again, I get it, that's a mouthful, that's a lot of information, but we have this amazing occurrence here where Ahaz, this evil king, his voice spoke over a nation, and it crippled them, it hindered them, it held them back, it made them lose who they were meant to be. You have priests and people with purpose who are supposed to be blessed by God and be a blessing to other people, to live open-handed, to let that blessing that came to them go through them. However, what happens in this moment is the voice of Ahaz hinders them. They're allowing his voice to influence them. We dealt with that last week. Then you have this voice of Hezekiah that speaks up and says, no, it's time to get your life back. I see a kingdom in disarray. I see a people who are living far below the standard they were meant to live. It's time to get your life back. And so he brings them together, and he's like a coach, and he's saying, hey, no, we're doing this thing. We're tired of living life like the devil wants us to live. We're tired of living that way. We need to get our life back. We need to go and get what is ours, what God sent for us. We need to go and live that. We need to get our life back. And so that's the point we find ourselves. But there's some very interesting things that happen in this passage. And I want to go to verse 3. So 2 Chronicles 29, verse 3. It says, in the very first month of the first year of his reign, Hezekiah reopened the doors of the temple. Now, this is interesting because remember, the temple had been closed for a while now. There was a voice of Ahaz that shut it up and shut it down. And when Hezekiah comes on the scene, when he's in leadership, he looks out and he knows, man, we as a people need our life back. We need our positions back and our purpose back and our dignity back. We need our worth back. We need to get our life back. And he knows the restoration and the recovery that need to happen. But he knows that none of those things can happen unless he opens the door first. Remember, it's shut up. It's chained. And so a lot of people will just skip over verse 3. But all the success of recovery and restoration of the people uniting together, cleaning out the temple and serving God together would not happen without verse 3. It doesn't happen without Hezekiah first reopening the door. It seems so simple, but guess what? Your recovery, your restoration, you living above what you're currently living under, those things, getting to the point where you are getting your life back and being who God made you to be, happens when you open the door. You got to give yourself a chance. You got to give yourself a chance. See, if Hezekiah had all of these things like, hey, I want to restore the temple, and I want to give the people their life back, and I want us to become who we were made to be, and I want us to live purpose and sail the seas of life, being the loaded vessel we are. Like, I want us to do all those things, but he doesn't first open the door. It didn't matter what he had a desire to do. You have to open the door first. Because how could the priests go in there to clean out the defilement of the temple if the door wasn't open for them to go in? So him opening the door was the setup for this whole thing. So some of us in this room, man, we want to get our life back, and we want recovery, and we want restoration, and we want to stop being the victim, and we want to start walking, conquering over the things that we're supposed to conquer in our life. We want to get our life back. We want to live in freedom and peace and hope. We want to live with worth and value. Like, we want all those things. But just because you want them doesn't mean they happen unless you open the door and give yourself access to the victory and the restoration you so desperately want. So he had to open the door first. And opening the door gave them a chance. He had to open the door. So I want to encourage you right now to open some doors. Because when you open doors, you give yourself a chance at getting your life back. But when you keep the doors closed and shut that have been chained for years, when you stay in where you feel right now, then you shut yourself off from the chance at victory, restoration, and recovery. Now, I'm a preacher who loves to give you life examples. And so I'm going to tell you a story, and it's going to seem like it has no relation to this at all, and it probably really doesn't, but it's cool. So when I was a kid, I mentioned last week that I had some weird animals, right? I mentioned to you last week that I had a couple alligators. I mentioned that I had some tarantulas and some scorpions, and I wasn't the kid that was like, oh, I love dogs and cats. No, that wasn't me. I think cats are from hell. So can you say that? I don't know. Forgive me. I think cats are from, when someone goes there, they get licked by cats. And they get mustard dumped on them. But anyway, that's not what it's about. But anyway, my mom worked at a pet store. And when she worked at this pet store, there was a snake in the pet store. And I used to get to go spend some time at the pet store after school. I would go there and hang out a little bit before my mom got off. And I used to love going to the pet store. Most people go to the pet store to look at the little fishies or the kittens or the dogs and stuff. I didn't care about that. They had a snake in there. They had some scorpion. Like, I like that kind of stuff. I'm like, right? And so I didn't have a lot of friends. So I made friends with the snake. And why y'all laughing? You should be like, oh, I'm sorry, he didn't have friends, but you laugh. But I didn't have a lot of friends, so I would go to the pet store, and they had this python in there. And I would go to the cage of the python, and I would talk. And, he wouldn't really talk, he would hiss. And he would kind of, right? And so we would have these conversations, this true story. And one day, I'm like, man, I want to take this snake out. And so I got, every day I would go there, I would take the snake out, and me and the snake, we would bond. I'd take the snake and hold it, and we'd look at each other. And then I'd take the snake, and I'd put it on my shoulders. And so we just kind of hang out, me and this snake. I'd be walking around like, what up? Got this snake in my python. That was my girl. And then what happened is I had this bomber jacket. Y'all know what that is? Like the little leather jacket with the fuzz? Right? I was looking good. And one day, I thought, man, this would be cool to put the snake in there and see what the snake does. So I had the snake on my shoulders, and then I zipped up the bomber jacket, so the snake's inside the jacket. Well, my mom raised me to be chivalrous, right? She raised me to be, kind and courteous and try to open the door for people. I was always taught to focus on the needs of other people. Whether I did it or not, that's what they taught me to do. And so I see these two ladies get ready to come into the pet store. It looked like, they came over on the ark or something. They were a little bit seasoned. and they were struggling walking. They, had canes, and it was just really like you could see life on them. Like they had lived a while. And they were kind of like, I went to open the door for them, and they were like, oh, thank you, Sonny. Like that kind of lady. Oh, thank you, Sonny. I mean, and just, denture's about to fall out. I'm just kidding, no. But I opened the door for them, and then as I opened the door for them, they took a step in. I thought, man, I really have an opportunity here. Like I could scare these ladies, and that would be pretty cool. And so as they took a few steps with their, getting into the store, all of a sudden, I unzipped my jacket. And that snake went like this right here. Those two old ladies who walked in with canes and walkers, they dropped those things and ran out of the store. They did not need that. They ran out of the store and got scared to death by some little fuzzy head punk with a snake in his jacket. And because I am such a nice pastor who wants to give you life practical advice, I'm going to help you with something here. In case you were to go home today and walk into your living room and there were to be an 18-foot anaconda in your living room, I'm going to tell you how to solve that issue, okay? If you were to go to open your car door today in the parking lot as you go to leave and there just happens to be an anaconda in your car, I'm going to help you know how to defeat this anaconda. Because I'm such a practical guy, I got some steps here. Here we go. If you are attacked by an anaconda, first, do not run. This snake is much faster than you are. Don't panic. Step 2, lie flat on the ground. Put your arms tight against your sides and your legs tight against one another. Don't panic. Step 3, tuck your chin in. And don't panic. Step 4, the snake will come and begin to nudge you and climb over your body. But don't panic. Step 5, after the snake has examined you, it will begin to swallow you from the feet, but always from the end of your feet. Permit the snake to swallow you through your feet and ankles, and don't panic. Step 6, the snake will now begin to suck your legs into its body. You must lie perfectly still. This will take a long time, but don't panic. Step 7, when the snake has gotten above your knees toward your waist, slowly, with as little movement as possible, reach into your pocket, take out your knife, and gently slide it up into the side of the snake's mouth, between the edge of its mouth and jaw, and then suddenly rip upwards as violently as you can, severing its head. Step 8, be sure you brought your knife. Be sure you brought your knife. And somebody's saying, what in the world does that story mean? Nothing really except that if that was a real situation, in order to have a chance, you better have your knife. And in life, guess what? We are in environments and situations where things are consuming us and overwhelming us. And we want to act like just because we wish it would end, that it's actually going to end. If you don't have some things in place in your life, you don't give yourself a chance at recovery. In order for you to beat that anaconda, you better make sure you brought your knife. And in order for you to get your life back and be who God made you to be and walk in victory and let go of addiction and bondage and pain, you better give yourself a chance by opening some doors. So King Hezekiah, he opens the door first. And it's because he opened the door that the people of God were able to respond in victory. So I want you to give yourself a chance today. And so I want to talk about 3 doors that are important for you to open. So everything I've said so far today was all introduction. Now we're about to get into it. All right, here we go. The first door that I want you to open, if you're going to give yourself a chance at getting your life back, the first door you have to open is the door of personal responsibility. Never fail to ask yourself, what's my role in this? Never fail to ask yourself, why am I where I'm at? we are not just the acted upon. We are also the actors or actresses. Hezekiah does something pretty amazing in this passage. When he lays out the difficulty that his people are facing, he doesn't blame it on wars and blame it on this and blame it on that. He says the reason we are where we are is because of us. The reason that the people of Judah and Jerusalem are experiencing the devastation that we're experiencing is because of us. We neglected the temple. We snuffed out the lamps. We didn't burn the incense. We neglected God. He took personal responsibility. And so many times in life, people want to get their life back. They're like, oh, I want to be who I was made to be. But yet you want to blame everybody else. If you're going to become who you were made to be and live out what God has for you, then you must start taking some responsibility. I get it. There's some people that have offended you and hurt you, and mommy and daddy didn't do what they were supposed to do. But everything in your life isn't someone else's fault. Sometimes it's your fault too. Sometimes it's you saying, man, I need to take some responsibility for what I'm going through. Because here's something that you can always control is your response. You can't always control what somebody says to you, does to you, or says about you, or speaks over you, but you can control how you respond to it. And so maybe there are some people in your life that had some issues, or they did some things to you that harmed you or led you a specific way. But just because that did that doesn't give you a green light to live in dysfunction and blame it on them. You have to start taking responsibility and realizing that maybe I have a role to play in where I am. Maybe I'm not just the acted upon. I'm also the actor or actress. Maybe I've done some things in my life that have led me to where I am. Maybe I've mishandled some things, or I haven't processed correctly what I've gone through. You have to open the door of personal responsibility. There's a difference between responsibility and condemnation. To know that you are responsible and to take that responsibility is different than for you to know you're responsible and condemn yourself and act like you're beyond hope. No one is beyond hope. All of us have things that we're responsible for. You need to get your life back. You need to get your life back, but the first door to open is the door of personal responsibility. The reason that a lot of us want to blame other people is because the amount of pain that we face, that we let that pain blind us. We let that pain limit our perspective. And today we have to wake up and say, man, pain can blind me. And it can blind you so much that you stop thinking about your own responsibility in the situation, and you just start pointing and saying, well, this person abused me, and this person did this, and this person did that, and this person said this, and I had a poor dad, and I had this, and I had... Listen, the problem is that you have to start taking responsibility. You have a role to play. Part of where you are is your fault. And somebody say, how could you say that? Because some people are in abusive relationships. I am not saying at all that getting abused is your fault, but how you respond to that and how you let what happened to you lord the rest of your life and control you, that is your fault. Now, I know I'm going to get an email. I'm going to get somebody's going to give me something for this, but I want to tell you the truth. The truth is you have to open the door for personal responsibility. You are where you are partly or fully because of you. Now, I get it. That's not popular preaching. You want me to come and tell you how good you are. I already did that. You're a loaded vessel. You have worth and you have dignity. But you're never going to be who you were made to be as long as you keep blaming everybody else. It's time that we open the door of personal responsibility. You are more than a victim. But many of you live as that's your only identity. And you're blaming everybody else, and you think you're only a product of their words and their actions. But you have more to live for. You must take personal responsibility, and Hezekiah does that here. He says, hey, listen, man, we're here because of us. Now, at the time, if you read in the Old Testament, which is where we're at right now, you'll read that a lot of kings would blame the downfall of their kingdom on wars and battles that they didn't plan for and didn't happen. Hezekiah does something totally different. He's like, hey, no, listen, it's our fault. Of course, the people of God over the years had experienced battles and losses and difficulties that they hadn't planned for. But Hezekiah doesn't blame it on that king coming and this king coming and doing all. He just says, no, we take this one. This is on our chin. This is our fault. We did this. We led ourselves here. And please don't misunderstand me. I know that things happen in life that you don't plan for. and people mistreat you and speak negative things over you, and there are lies that are said about you, but how you respond, that is up to you. And until you take personal responsibility and open that door and say, I have a role to play here, until you do that, you don't give yourself a chance at recovery. You must take personal responsibility. There is a book that I was reading, and in that book it's talking about, there was this counseling session, this group counseling session, and this woman spoke up in it and said, hey, my name is so-and-so, and I've had, I've been in 7 different marriages with 7 different abusive husbands. I've had 7 different abusive husbands. And another person who's a friend of them spoke up and said, no, you've had one abusive husband with 7 different names. And what they were trying to illustrate is that there was something about that lady that was putting herself consistently in those situations. Was she deserving of abuse? Absolutely not. But she had a role to play that she kept allowing herself to be in those environments and those situations. And do you deserve the pain and the devastation that you face most of the time? No. However, you have a role to play by, if the same things continue to happen to you year after year, day after day, relationship after relationship, it's probably not everybody else's fault. It's probably yours. Personal responsibility is key. And until you open that door of responsibility, you don't give yourself a chance. I talk with people who say, I'm anxious because this person said this and this person did that. My dad didn't do this and my mom didn't do this. And I'm anxious because of this person's death. Or I'm anxious because, listen, I understand all of those things. But you got to take some responsibility and say, well, maybe some of these things contributed to my level of anxiousness, but I can be responsible enough to let go of those things and be who I was made to be. Part of you keeping it pent in and chained up and not opening the door is your own fault. So you got to open the door of personal responsibility. The second door you have to open is the door of personal discipline. Now, I get it. When I say discipline, some people automatically have negative connotations of that word. They get upset because you were raised in homes like mine, where my mom and dad had a wooden paddle with flames on it that said hot seat. And it wasn't for a spanking, it was for whipping your tail, okay? You know what I'm saying? Anybody grow up in homes like that where you pick your switch? No, go get the paddle, right? And so I grew up in that type of home. And so in the English language, we have confused 2 words. We have confused the word discipline and the word punishment. But they are different words. In fact, if you think about in Christianity, there's a word that gets thrown a lot in Christianity, the word disciple or discipleship. If you'll notice, the word discipline and the word disciple are very similar. So discipleship, the root word, is the same root for the word discipline. Discipline doesn't mean punishment. Discipline is training for a specific purpose. Punishment is something that happens to someone as retribution for an offense. I want to say it again. Discipline is training for a specific purpose. Punishment is something that happens to someone as retribution for an offense. Here's a way to explain it. Do we have anybody in the audience who is currently in the military or formerly in the military? Thank you guys for your service, your courage. I applaud you. Thank you for stepping up and answering the call and being someone who can stand in the gap for us. I appreciate you. Yes, thank you. When I was about 18 years old, I got the idea that I was going to go into the Marine Corps. See, your laughs said it all right there. I was feeling like God was kind of calling me into ministry somewhat, but I was kind of running from it because I was a little scared about it. That's just honesty. And I remember like, all right, what can I do? All right, sure. I'll check out the Marine Corps. I mean, the Marine Corps and all the other branches, these are like all of the branches together. I mean, the military, these are like the bravest of the brave. These are the men and women of courage. These are the people that stand in the gap. None of those things do you think about when you think of me. Right? I couldn't imagine going to boot camp or going to basic training and showing up and being like, here I am. I mean, they're going to have some fun with me. But think about it. When the person who's in the military, when they sign and then they enlist and then they go to the boot camp or the basic training and they get there, those people haven't done anything wrong. In fact, they did everything right in that moment. They answered the call to stand in the gap for somebody else. They signed away themselves for the good of the country and the good of their common people. Like they did everything right. But as soon as they step off the bus, nobody was there going, hey, welcome to basic training. They were like, go! You know, they're just like, I mean, they're like yelling at them and screaming and telling them to get down and give me 20 push-ups and come over here, you little, slimy dogs. And, like they're doing all these different things. Was that punishment? No, because they hadn't done anything wrong to get that. That was discipline. It was people coming together to say, we want to develop this type of person. A person who can put others before themselves. A person who can be disciplined under pressure. A person who can be courageous. A person who doesn't let their environment stop them from doing what they're called to do. And so the military got together and they developed a program of discipline for a specific purpose to develop a specific type of person that can answer the call for the country. That is not punishment. That is discipline. Punishment, again, is an action that happens to you as retribution for an offense. So when I say discipline here, you have to open the door of personal discipline. Throw out punishment right now. I am not talking about that. Don't let the truth of godly discipline be tainted by your lack of understanding of punishment. Punishment is different than discipline. But you want to notice something here in this passage. That Hezekiah, as he's calling the Levites in, he opens the door. The very next thing he does when he gets the Levites all around him is he says, hey, purify yourself. He says, I want you to purify yourself. In fact, he calls them to purify themselves before he ever calls them to purify the temple. Purifying yourself at this time had several steps. It could look like you going to wash your hands and wash your feet. Many times you had to go dip your body in a pool of water of some kind, and then you had to wash your clothes. It might involve you washing your face, or it could involve you offering a burnt sacrifice, which was a process all by itself. Then it could look like you taking blood and water and sprinkling it on you or sprinkling it on the altar. So you can notice that before they're going to be about this work of restoration and recovery and get their life back, Hezekiah opens the door, says you got to open the door of personal responsibility. Man, we're here because of us. Take some responsibility, own it, quit denying it. But he also says, let's open the door of personal discipline. Let's enact several steps that point us to the holiness of God and surrenders our character to him. That was what purifying themselves was all about. The act of purifying themselves was not their salvation. It was to point them to the one who could do the saving. And here's what I know. A lot of people, they want to get restoration. They want to get recovery. They want to get their life back. They want to be who they were made to be. But they want to act like it's somehow just going to show up overnight. No, there are steps of discipline and training that you must put into your life that bring about that result. Just because you want it doesn't mean it's going to come. How many of you want a raise? Oh, yeah. Right? How many of you going to get it just because you want it? How many of you want your kids to mind? Oh, guess what? You better do more than wish. Better spank that sucker. I'm just kidding, right? How many of you want life to be a little bit better? How many of you want to wake up and live without anxiety and depression? You want to get your life back? Well, you better do more than wish. You better open the door of personal discipline. Personal training where you can get in a moment with the Lord. Some people want the wisdom of God of how to navigate life situations, but you don't ever want to put the discipline of spending time with God in your life. Woo! Newsflash, that don't happen. You don't get the wisdom of God just because you want it. You get it because you put yourself in the environment to get it. That's right. You don't get the direction of God just because you wish it was there. You don't get freedom just because you wish it. You get it because you work it. You get it because you have personal discipline. You open the door to putting yourself in opportunities and experiences and in relationships that bring about that type of change that you desire. Discipline is so important, but we live in a microwave society. Man, we want food, but we don't want to sit at the oven and cook it for 3 hours. So we just pop that baby in the microwave. Take off the film or poke some holes in it. Make sure you read the instructions. Boop, boop, boop. And pop it in there. In 3 minutes, we got us a meal. And we want victory and recovery the same way. We want to take our current character and our current life, and we just want to pop a couple holes in it and stick it in some little thing real quick, and, oh, Lord, please help me, and come to the altar, and blah, 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 and boom, it's better. It don't work like that way. It doesn't work like that. You must open the door to personal discipline. The issue is not that you think that personal discipline isn't somehow involved in this. The issue is that most of you are too lazy to do it. And I know somebody, this is hard preaching, somebody's going to be like, oh, you were offending, you offended me, you stepped on my toes, you deserve it. As do I. As do I. If you want to get your life back, if you want to be who God made you to be, if you want to experience the freedom you were meant to experience, you must first open the door. You got to give yourself a chance. You got to open the door of personal responsibility and own your struggles. Own who you are. Don't push the blame on everybody else. Say, no, I got a role to play in this. And you got to open the door to personal discipline. Allowing some steps to be brought, some structure to be brought into your life so you can experience the freedom and restoration you want. You're probably not going to have the freedom you want without regularly coming to church. Sorry. Somebody say, I'll watch you online. Well, online is fantastic for a time. You're probably not going to have the freedom and life that you want without accountability and relationships that give life. You're not going to have the wisdom that you desire to say no to things that are robbing you blind without programs like Recovery Alive. And without getting alone with the Word of God. There's all kinds of ways you can do this. I'd love to talk with you about it. There's all kinds of ways that you can develop discipline in your life that will bring about a specific goal of getting your life back. But if you don't open that door and you just want to keep being lazy and keep sitting on your tail, and guess what? You ain't going nowhere. On Friday, I had to come here for Friday afternoon. There was a guy coming to check on something, and I got here, and while he was doing his work, I was studying, and when I get to studying, I sometimes just lose track of everything else. And I go, he leaves, and I kind of tidy some things up here. I go get in my truck, and I get ready to go to leave. And I told my wife already that I'd be home at a specific time, and I was kind of cutting it close. So I was like, no, I need to leave. So I got in my truck. I put my bag in there, and I'm thinking, where are my keys? I'm like patting my pockets. I'm like, I'm looking everywhere. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out at that time I had a big fro, so I'm like, is it in my hair? I don't know. But I'm looking all around trying to find my keys. I'm looking in my bag. I'm looking in my seat there. I'm thinking, I left it in the church. So I get up. I open the door and get out of the seat to go into the church. I just happened to look back in my seat. I was sitting on my keys. I have no idea why I didn't feel the keys. Maybe I just got a big tail. I don't know. But I was sitting on my keys. The very thing that would propel me to the place that I desire to be, I was sitting on. And that's the time that we find many of ourselves. That the very things that we know will propel us to where we want to be in the victory and getting our life back, we're sitting on those things. We're sitting on responsibility, and we're sitting on accountability. We're sitting on discipline, acting like somehow, that doesn't apply to us. No, those are the things that are going to help you get to where you need to be. Those are the things that are going to help you get your life back. And the third door to open is open the door of personal vision. Open the door of personal vision. Now, this one is super important because many times I mentioned earlier that pain will bother you, right? Pain will limit your perspective. Pain will taint your perception. But pain can also be clarity for you too. Pain can help clear up some things. It can help you see what's important and what matters. And I want you to notice in verse 16. Verse 16 of this passage, look what it says. It says, the priest went into the sanctuary of the temple of the Lord to cleanse it. So when the priests were going in there to the temple, remember, it's broken down, it's defiled, it's overwhelmed, it's devastated, and they want to get their life back. They want to restore this thing, bring in recovery. Remember, this verse, it shows perfect clarity. It says they went into the temple to cleanse it. It didn't say they went into the temple to walk around holding hands and saying, hey, we back, right? The door's been shut down for so long, but we in this thing. It doesn't say that they walked in there and started looking around and said, what are we here for? It says they went in the temple to cleanse it. So they had a specific vision of what they were there for. And if you don't open the door of vision for your life, if you don't open the door and say, man, maybe I'm this person now, but God is calling me to a new identity and a new person. He's calling me to get my life back. Maybe I'm upset and riddled with anxiety and depression now, but God hadn't called me to live this way. And I got a vision for who I'm becoming. I got a vision for why I'm here. If you're not careful and if you don't open the door to personal vision for your life, then the things that you're supposed to keep, you'll throw away, and the things you're supposed to throw away, you'll keep. Now, if you were to continue to read this passage, you'll notice that when the Levites go to Hezekiah to let him know, hey, we've done the job. We took out the stuff that we were supposed to take out. They say something else too. They say, we've cleansed the temple. Also, the things that Ahaz stole from the temple and hid, we found those. And we polished them, and we purified them, and we put them where they're supposed to be. So if they're supposed to go at the altar, they're at the altar and they're clean. If they're supposed to go by the Holy of Holies, they're there and they're clean. So notice something. They didn't only have the job of taking things out. They also had the job of bringing things in. And the reason that they could take out the right things and bring in the right things was because they had vision. And if you're not careful, the band, you guys can come up. If you're not careful, there's going to be some things in your life that you're supposed to keep, you're going to throw away. And there's some things you're supposed to throw away that you're going to keep. It's important to remember this. You have to be careful. You got to have vision. The vision for your life was never for you to be overwhelmed with anxiety and depression and for life to just stink. That was never what you were made for. Your marriage was never put together in the unity of God for it to suck. It was never put there for that. It was put to bring freedom and hope and healing. There is so much more for you. But if you lack or fail to open the door of personal vision, the very things that you're supposed to keep, you'll throw away. And the things you're supposed to throw away, you'll keep. The Levites, because they knew what they were there for. They knew who they were to become. They were ready to get their life back. They were ready to get the kingdom back. They were ready to restore the temple because the restoration of the temple led to the restoration of the people in their heart. It brought their purpose back, their blessing back, their dignity back. And so they walked in there knowing what they were shooting for, knowing what they were going for, knowing who they were supposed to become. And because they did that, they could walk in there and the things that were defiled, they could take those things and throw them out. And then the things that had value, they went and got them and brought them back. See, some of you are ready to throw your marriage away because your vision is skewed. Getting a new spouse or getting rid of your old one isn't going to solve your problem. You must first take some responsibility and stop pointing at them and start pointing at you and say, what part do I have to play in this? And what discipline can I open the door to that will train me for a specific purpose of becoming who I'm supposed to become? And what vision do I need to look to? Who is it that God is calling me to be? What identity does He have for me? Because once I have the correct identity, I have the right vision, then I know what to throw out and I know what to bring in. And I just feel in my spirit today, somebody in this room is about to throw out something that you're supposed to polish and bring back into your life. And somebody's about to throw out something. Man, you're about to throw something away. You're acting like it's the problem. You're about to throw away something you're supposed to polish and bring in. I also think that somebody in this room is about to keep something that you need to eliminate from your life. How do you know the difference between the two? Wisdom from God and personal vision. Because they knew what they were there to do. They could throw away what they needed to throw away, and they could keep what they needed to keep. I mean, anybody tired of your life being a wreck? Am I the only one that's tired of life being out of control? Am I the only one that's tired of watching people be overwhelmed with depression and anxiety and the weights of the world? I can't be the only one that wants people to get their life back. Do you want your life back? If you do, then you need to open the door Yes, check the voice. Make sure you're listening to the right one. Make sure the influence, the right voice over you is the one you're listening to. But you better open some doors. That's the beauty of Hezekiah opening the door here. Is he didn't walk around and say, oh man, this door's been shut for years. It's chained. It's locked. I guess it's just always going to be that way. No, he said, no, I want my life back. I want my kingdom back. I want to be who I was made to be. I want people to be blessed. I'm ready to get my life back. And because I am, I better open a door. It might be chained 7 times around, but I got to get something, cut it open the door. And if you want your life back, you will open the door of personal responsibility. You will open the door of discipline, and you will open the door of vision. I love it when people clap. It makes me feel good, but I love it even more when you go and live it. I love it even more when you'll be overwhelmed by the goodness of God and say, man, I was made for more than that. Let me go get my life back. Let me get my marriage back. And let me get my kids back. And let me get my sanity back. Let me go get my faith back. Let me get my life back. You better open the door. As long as you let the doors that are currently locked stay locked, you'll stay locked in where you are. It's time to get your life back. It's time to get your life back. So Hezekiah knows this, so he opens the door. You really think it was easy for him to open? No. It had cobwebs. It was neglected. It was chained. It was locked. It was shut down and shut up, not fulfilling its purpose. But he didn't let it stop him because he cared more about who he was made to be and what he was made to do than he did about the past and who the past was trying to tell him he had to be. So he went and got his life back. He went and got his kingdom back. He went and got his faith. All because he opened the door. Same thing can happen to you. No matter where you find yourself currently, no matter where you're at today, no matter where you find yourself and where you've been in the past or where you were last night, you can get your life back. Check the voice you listen to and open some doors. If you will, stand with me, please. I believe 100% in this moment, somebody's about to get their life back. Somebody's about to say, enough is enough. I'm tired. I'm tired of getting robbed by the enemy. I'm tired of letting those things stop me from being who I was made to be. It's time to get my life back. As they sing this song, I just hope and pray that you'll respond in the way you know you need to with the Lord. Maybe for you today, maybe you need to just come and say, God, I've been denying my role in all of this, and I've been pointing the finger and blaming everybody else. But today I just have to just honestly say, man, I have a role to play in this. And God, I am at fault in this situation or this scenario. Part of where I am in life is because of me, God. And I want to stop denying it. I want to own it and be responsible for it. And you'll watch as you do that, as you quit blaming everybody else and you open the door of personal responsibility, you'll watch some of the weight of the way you've been deceiving yourself fall off. You'll gain some clarity because no longer will it be, let me fix everybody else. It will now be, maybe I need to start fixing me. I mentioned in here, they were called to fix themselves before they were ever called to fix the environment around them. Quit trying to fix everybody else. Focus on you. So open the door of responsibility. Some of you need to do that today and confess that to the Lord. Maybe some of us in this room today need to say, look, man, I need to open the door of personal discipline. I need to have the courage to bring some things into my life, some steps that are going to bring about specific change. Maybe those steps scare you. Maybe you don't have the energy to do that. Maybe you don't have the courage. Maybe you're afraid that people will judge you. That still doesn't mean you shouldn't open the door. Maybe confess that to the Lord today. I'm scared to open that door. I'm scared of discipline. I'm scared of these things. But Lord, please give me the opportunity and the courage to do it. And maybe some of you today just need the door of personal vision opened up. You need to see yourself the way God sees you. You need to see beyond where you are today. Confess to the Lord, hey, I see me for who I am today and not who you call me to be. So Lord, help shape me. Let me see the eyes of faith. Help me with the identity you made me to be so that I can know what to throw out and I can know what to keep. This altar is open, and I hope and pray that you will interact with the Spirit of God, because it's time to get your life back, and it's time to open the door. Lord, speak to us today. Help us feel your Spirit. Let us expect you to work. Let us anticipate your Spirit being poured out. God, today in this moment, let us open the door and get our life back. Let us come to a place where we can say, I open the door of responsibility and open the door of discipline, and I'll open the door of vision. God, right now in this moment, speak to me, overwhelm me, help me get my life back. God, work in people's hearts today. This altar is open in Jesus' name.